Most people fear true isolation because silence strips away their distractions. No performance, no escape, only raw thoughts. This quickly becomes unbearable for the average individual because modern society trains the mind to react, not to reflect. The average mind avoids deep self-examination. People rarely cross-examine their beliefs, audit their emotions, or challenge the internal scripts they call reality. They live in a perpetual state of emotional reaction. Niccolò Machiavelli recognized this design flaw. He saw that most human beings are enslaved by impulses they don't comprehend, blinded by pride, paralyzed by fear, and leveraged by desire. Because people refuse to audit themselves honestly, their behavior becomes entirely predictable. This is where dangerous intelligence diverges. Rare minds do not run from psychological discomfort, they sit with it. Instead of hunting for soothing illusions, they cross-examine everything. They tolerate uncertainty without panicking, and they analyze their emotions like external data. To master the world around you, you must first master the hidden currents within yourself. Welcome to the path of psychological sovereignty. Most people live in a fog of reaction. But for the strategist, there is only the pursuit of dangerous clarity. Human nature is a series of patterns. Once you decode the shadows, the light of truth becomes impossible to ignore. Look closer. The micro-expressions of insecurity, the forced confidence, the nervous shifts in posture. Everything is a signal. The sovereign individual sits in the stillness, observing the chaos without becoming part of it. This is where power begins. But observation is not enough. You must actively dismantle the programming you've inherited from the masses. We begin with the first protocol, the most difficult transformation you will ever undertake. Protocol 1, the ideological audit. Most people are simply echoes of their environment. To be truly free, you must audit your beliefs as if they were enemy propaganda. If you cannot stress test your worldview, you are not a thinker. You are a vessel for someone else's agenda. Ask yourself the questions that make you uncomfortable. Peel back the layers of social conditioning until only the raw truth remains. Every belief you hold is a link in a chain. Is that chain protecting you, or is it holding you back from your potential? The audit requires total honesty. It requires the courage to stand alone in your conclusions, even if the world disagrees. I leave you with this final exercise for the day. Look at your most deeply held conviction and ask, what if I'm completely wrong? To question your own perspective is to dismantle your ego. It forces the brain into territory where easy scripts don't exist. Most people retreat instantly, choosing emotional comfort over tactical accuracy. But dangerous thinkers court that discomfort. They understand that a single false assumption can misalign an entire life, causing them to misread threats. They run post-action reviews on past choices, asking, was my response structural or emotional? Am I defending this position to protect an illusion? Machiavelli observed that leaders destroy themselves because emotional bias cripples their metrics. Pride creates rigidity. Fear warps risk assessment. Manipulators know the masses violently protect their comfort. Hand them a soothing lie, and you gain leverage. Dangerous minds operate outside this trap. The moment new data emerges, they pivot without sentimental resistance. Autocorrection is a pure power move. Every time you strip away a flawed belief, your processing speed increases. Reality doesn't shift to accommodate emotional discomfort. Drop your anchor in the comments. Weigh metrics, not pride. Number 2, analyzing your own emotions. An external variable acts against you, a slight, an insult, and your internal state shifts. You run loop simulations of the conflict in your head, scripting perfect retorts. This is emotional hijacking. Most people simply obey the impulse. Anger dictates action, fear drives avoidance. Sovereign thinkers deploy an observer filter. When an emotional payload hits, they isolate it, asking, why did that specific variable provoke this frame? What internal fault line did it expose? Every emotional spike is a diagnostic report. Jealousy exposes insecurity. Anger maps wounded pride. Machiavelli recognized that unmanaged emotions are a massive security risk. An emotional actor is predictable, and a predictable actor is easily controlled externally. Sovereign minds introduce a strategic gap between stimulus and response. They sever emotion from decision-making, treating feelings as temporary weather, but actions as permanent architecture. Insults fail to trigger them. When pressure spikes, their logic remains online, while emotional actors unravel and leak critical information. Drop your anchor. Calm mind wins. Number 3, reinterpreting past experiences. Average people bury painful memories to escape the discomfort. Dangerous minds return to old failures, betrayals, and humiliations in total silence. They aren't wallowing, they are extracting data. They replay an old betrayal and spot the warning signs they ignored because emotion clouded their judgment at the time. Comfort hides weakness, pain exposes it. Machiavelli knew human nature reveals itself under pressure. Loyalty changes when personal gain appears. Highly intelligent people learn strategically rather than emotionally. They ask, what blinded me? What pattern did I ignore? This turns raw pain into clean intelligence. Life repeats patterns constantly. The same personality types and manipulation tactics return in different forms. Those who don't reflect are condemned to repeat the loop. Reflective operators recognize danger early and isolate liabilities instantly. Awareness doesn't make you cruel, it makes you impossible to fool. Innocent trust is a liability. Awareness understands that human behavior shifts under pressure, temptation, and opportunity. Drop your anchor. Pain taught me. Number 4, curiosity about random or seemingly useless topics. The crowd only processes information tied to immediate utility, status, or monetary gain. Dangerous minds are driven by an internal need to decode how the world actually operates. They study historical power shifts, deception mechanics, behavioral psychology, and ancient strategies. They don't do this to collect trivia, they do it to map underlying patterns. Machiavelli noted that while technology changes, human nature remains entirely stagnant across generations. Fear, greed, and pride drive behavior today exactly as they did centuries ago. By absorbing asymmetric data, these minds develop advanced pattern recognition, one of the most lethal forms of intelligence. When they look at an interaction, they don't look at the surface. They decode who holds emotional control and what motives are hidden underneath. Average individuals judge strictly by appearances. They believe words, trust unearned confidence, and are manipulated by curated images. Curious minds train deep observation. They identify the real drivers behind behavior, who is controlled by validation and who is paralyzed by fear. Knowledge across disciplines connects like pieces of a larger puzzle. Drop your anchor. Decode the pattern. Number 5, correcting your thinking in real time. Most people would rather defend a massive lie than endure the temporary bruise of admitting they were wrong. Once ego attaches to an opinion, changing course feels like humiliation. They pretend confidence even as their strategy collapses. Machiavelli understood that rigid thinking creates predictable paths, and predictable paths make you incredibly easy to manage. Sovereign thinkers value accuracy over pride. If new metrics expose a flaw in their strategy, they execute an immediate course correction without emotional drag. Flexible thinkers survive and outperform because they adapt faster than the terrain shifts. Rigid minds cling to outdated concepts. Because ego refuses to accept failure. They defend mistakes until the damage becomes completely catastrophic. Dangerous individuals run clean, transparent assessments. No emotional performance, just ruthless adjustment. Arrogance blinds perception, convincing people they already know enough. Adaptable minds continue learning. They remain calm because their identity isn't built on always being right, but on reading reality accurately. Drop your anchor. Truth changes me. Number 6, enjoying solitude and your own mind. The masses aren't afraid of isolation. They are terrified of facing their own thoughts without a filter. Noise, superficial validation, and endless digital loops exist to keep self-awareness at bay. Silence forces an honest confrontation. Solitude uncovers what distraction hides, emotional dependence, and unresolved insecurity. Machiavelli recognized that individuals who depend on outside approval are highly leverageable. The craving for social acceptance forces people to compromise their standards and reveal their hand. Independent minds utilize isolation to process data clearly, free from crowd pressure. The less external validation you require, the harder you are to control. When you normalize isolation, the fear of disapproval completely loses its structural leverage over your strategy. Your confidence becomes private, stable, and decoupled from external praise or criticism. Dependent actors make fatally irrational decisions under social pressure. They follow crowds and alter their personalities to fit the room. Solitude builds absolute mental distance from the noise. Inside that silence, your observation turns lethal. Drop your anchor, I need no approval. The vast majority of people will cycle through life, defaulting to emotional reaction, desperately protecting their ego and remaining completely predictable. Machiavelli mapped the ultimate divide. The person who decodes others gains raw power, but the person who decodes both human nature and their own internal system becomes entirely impossible to exploit. This intelligence doesn't shout or waste energy trying to appear superior. It stays completely calm under immense pressure, clinical around chaotic actors, and structurally flexible when the terrain shifts. While the masses spend their lives blindly reacting to external scripts, rare minds map the ecosystem. They analyze the terrain, but most importantly, they audit themselves. When you master the internal code, validation stops controlling your decisions. If this strategic blueprint recalibrated your focus, like the video, subscribe to the channel and share this data path with an operator who studies the terrain. Once you master your own mind and human nature, you become impossible to manipulate, deceive, or destroy. Drop your final anchor. Awareness makes me dangerous.